Today, let's talk about EVs again. The last decade, electric vehicles have been framed as inevitability. The story was simple: technology improves, profits scale, infrastructure grows, and slowly electric vehicles replace IC combustion vehicles. If you look only at the numbers, the story still seems true. Global EV sales were expected to pass 20 million vehicles in 2025, which would mean roughly 1 in 4 new cars sold worldwide is electric. And that's according to the International Energy Agency's latest outlook. That's not early adoption anymore. That's actually a structural shift in the global car market. But at the same time, something else feels different. Even as EV sales rise, the confidence in this transition seems low compared to it being higher a few years ago. You can see it in investor calls, policy debates, consumer surveys, and even industry strategy changes. So, what's happening? How can EV growth be rising, but at the same time, the confidence in this transition still feels weak? The first thing to understand is that growth and confidence are two different things. Growth tells you how many vehicles are being sold, but confidence tells you whether the system feels stable enough to support this growth long term. And those two don't always move together. In fact, they often diverge during the most important phase of a technology transition, the moment it moves from niche adoption to mainstream scaling. That's exactly where EVs are now. But scaling a technology often changes what success looks like. When EVs were new, success meant innovation. But now, success means reliability. And that's where confidence gets tested. One major factor shaping confidence is policy uncertainty. For the past decade, EV adoption is heavily influenced by subsidies, tax incentives, and emission regulations. These policies didn't just encourage EV adoption, they literally shaped the market expectation. When those incentives changed even slightly, the market reacted quickly. In early 2026, global EV registrations dropped slightly year on year in January, partly due to subsidy adjustments and policy shifts in major markets. That doesn't mean EVs are failing. There's something much more important here that's being highlighted. The transition isn't just market driven yet. It's still deeply policy dependent. When there is a fluctuation in some sort of policy, there's a equal fluctuation in the confidence as well. The second important factor is basic economics. Scaling EV production has proven to be more complex and expensive than automakers actually expected them to be initially. Battery supply chains, factory retooling, software development, infrastructure integration, all these require enormous upfront investments. And some manufacturers have taken significant losses while ramping up EV production, even while their sales volumes increase. That's not unusual in technology transitions. It's quite common actually. But the narrative sort of shifts from, okay, EVs are taking over, to EVs are expanding, but profitability might still take time. That shift doesn't really help adoption, but it plays with expectations. Then there's infrastructure. Infra is that invisible backbone of confidence. Selling a car is one thing, but then supporting that ecosystem for millions of users is another. Charging networks are quickly growing, but not evenly, not consistently yet. Globally, public charging points have surpassed 1 million installations according to the IEA, but distribution varies dramatically, between countries, cities, and even neighborhoods. This unevenness in itself affects perception. Consumers don't really evaluate infrastructure globally, they evaluate it locally. And if charging their vehicles doesn't feel easy locally, then the confidence just falls. If it's easy locally, then the confidence rises, regardless of whatever the global statistics and global numbers are. There's also a psychological element to this transition, right? When adoption is small, problems are rare, optimism is generally high. But when adoption scales, problems become more visible. Charging queues appear, grid constraints have to be taken into accountability in policy debates. Insurance models have to evolve, repair systems have to adjust slightly. Growth usually exposes the complexities of the system, but complexity can look uncertain even if the direction is clear. Another structural change is that EV adoption is becoming uneven across regions. Some countries are accelerating rapidly, others are plateauing temporarily. For example, dozens of countries now have EV market shares above 10%, compared to just a handful 5 years ago. But the pace of adoption heavily depends on infrastructure, housing patterns, policy debates, and energy prices. This means that the EV adoption story is not a single global story, it's a patchwork of transitions happening in different regions and at different speeds. And when these narratives diverge, that's when confidence becomes slightly unstable. There's also a shift in the conversations itself. A few years ago, EV conversations revolved around innovation and technology, but today, EV conversations revolve around logistics and infrastructure. That shift is quite natural. Even major technology transitions moves from excitement to practicality. I mean, that's the whole point of evolving technologies. The internet moved from innovation to regulation. Smartphones moved from novelty to utility. Renewable energy moved from experiments to grid integrations. And now EVs are moving from vision to infrastructure. So, what does this whole story actually mean to us? It means that EV growth or EV transition is not just hypothetical anymore, it's actually operational. The question is no longer whether EVs can work. The question is more like whether the whole system is able to smoothly and consistently scale for the EV growth that's currently happening. Growth tells us EVs are spreading, but confidence tells us the system is still transitioning and still adapting. Both can be true at the same time. So maybe the right way to think about EVs today is not just the confidence is failing, it's that the expectations are becoming more realistic, and realistic expectations is what turns a technology from being trendy to being a norm. So what do you guys feel? Let me know in the comment section below. And with that, this is Pawan signing off.